Hello, I am here. I it's been a while. Apologies. I just wanted to pop in. It's been a rough couple of weeks. Actually, it's been a rough few weeks. It's been a month since I recorded, I think, or close to it. But I did warn that life does happen. I've had two meltdowns. I have been overwhelmed. I've been exhausted. I've had family responsibilities. Life just happened, and I haven't been able to bring myself to getting in front of the camera, but I am here. So, hi, hey, hello. It is me. I'm back on Spells, Spoons, and Alchemy, where we talk all things neurodivergent, menopause, and spirituality. And I did, before I got on camera today, I did watch my last video, and I think I wrapped up pretty much my story for the most part. I think it's time to just dive right into some of the nuts and bolts and the reason why we're here, and that is perimenopause and menopause and what it does to the neurodivergent brain. Because it, like I said in a one of my other videos, it throws you against the wall and leaves you for dead. And it takes no prisoners, and it doesn't care who you are. It will mess you up and throw you into a spiraling, chaotic mess of what the hell just happened to me. so, so we're just gonna dive right in and get to some of the stuff that I have learned. Um, Again, my notes are right below me. So if you see me looking down, I'm just trying to stay within a framework because I am a rambler and I do not edit. So I could go way over here on a tangent and stumble over my words, which will always happen because my brain and my mouth do not work together. So we are going to just dive right in. So, we are going to talk about what menopause actually did to my neurodivergent brain and from what I have researched, has happened to pretty much every neurodivergent brain when they hit perimenopause and menopause. Now, we all know ADHD, autism, neurodivergence, it's a spectrum. So my story may be similar to yours, it may be very different to yours, but it all plays into the same situation that we find ourselves in. So I, I meant when I was watching back my video, um, I said an awful lot. Man, I do ramble. I apologize. But yeah, I talked about a lot of different things. But the one thing that I only mentioned a little bit in the last video, but I did mention in the previous video, is about the whole menopause angle with neurodivergent and those of us who have reached a certain age, and how um basically what I found is there's like really not that much information out there. um there's a lot of people talking about um I guess brain fog in general, but I'm not finding too many people that are linking. I mean, they may have a video or two about it, but they're not linking the actual experience of menopause with the brain fog and with everything. And if they are talking about it, they're talking about it like this universal thing of just typical brain fog when you have a chronic issue or you're in burnout or all of that stuff. And the thing that I think a lot of videos that I've come across, now there may be out they there may be somebody talking about this that I just haven't found yet. I'm just going off my experience and my rabbit hole research that I went down when I was trying to figure things out. Um, we always, come across when we're on any type of research in regards to chronic issues, menopause, perimenopause, neurodivergence, all of these things. Brain fog is something that people talk about. But that's normally in through the filter of neurotypical brains. And there's not a lot that I've found about the neurodivergent brain, because if we have a brain fog in perimenopause or menopause, a lot of times um, we have a full collapse. We have a full system failure, which, some women who may suffer with PMDD may have, or, people who are very sensitive to hormones, they're not all going to be neurodivergent. So I do not want to speak in absolutes, which tends to be kind of one of the things that I do. And I don't want to do that because, as I said before, we're all on a spectrum and we all experience things very differently. Um, and I just, I think when when I was coming, not I think, when I was coming across information about menopause, it was mainstream stuff. It was what happens just in the female body in general. I mean, we all know the basic science. Your estrogen drops, other hormones take over, full system reset as we get older. We can no longer have kids. There's a lot of basics that a lot of us talk about. Now, I have a feeling. Now, I'm just going to say this, and I don't know how true it is. I don't know. Again, this is all my experience. This, I'm not speaking with any authority, or I'm not highly educated in this. I'm speaking like 100%, well, maybe 98% of experience, and only 2% of what I've come across with in my research. And the one thing I have felt when it comes to um, research, because most of the stuff I just stumble upon, there's not a lot, especially in the US, there's not a lot of people talking about menopause in general. I don't know if it's because of the patriarchy. I don't know if it's because um, science in general, not only just for neurodivergent science, but psychology and biology and physiology tends to be based around men and boys. The studies just seem to forget about the women's experience. They look at it, if it's like a researcher, it's so black and white thinking, and they're not taking into consideration the actual experience of a woman. And so I have a feeling that that might be why there's not a lot of information out there on menopause, because we're either don't know enough, or people consider it taboo, or the whole women don't, we don't talk about that stuff, we just deal with it in secret, we don't talk about it because men don't like us talking about it. Whatever the situation is, I truly believe that there's not a lot of information out there on menopause in general because of society and societal expectations and status and stigma and all of that. So it's really difficult to find it. And then you add the neurodivergent twist to it, and it's even harder because we all know that neurodivergent research and ADHD research and autism research has historically only been based on the lives of young boys, women. We couldn't have it. We don't have that's a boy problem. That's a male problem. Women don't have autism. Women don't have ADHD. These are a lot of the things that I've found as I've been coming across research on, you know, ADHD, autism, just neurodivergence in general. It's all been based around young boys. Now, that could be because we, as women, learn to mask, and we mask like we're professional maskers because women have to be a certain way. They're supposed to speak a certain way. They are not supposed to cause problems. They're supposed to be there and be the nurturer and be quiet little pretty girls dressed up with their little pin curls and their little ruffles. And we're not supposed to have flaws. I mean, I'm being very kind of cynical and sarcastic. So but I'm sure you could pick that up. Um, but there's not there's not a lot of the neurodivergent menopause. That's like another layer that you got to really go digging for. And I don't know if that's changing. I know there are some countries like the UK. They are, I think, from my own research, they're basically at the forefront of menopause research and neurodivergent research. A lot of the stuff that I have come across, reports and studies, and most of it's out of the UK. And I haven't gone down the straight menopause um pathway yet, but I have been told by some of my British friends that there is more effort being put in the scientific arena in the UK on menopause too. So let's just hope that gets across the pond to us here in the US so we can get out of this mindset that we don't talk about these things. So I want to be at least in this tiny, 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 tiny little corner of the YouTubes. I want to bring the conversation um, that I couldn't find here. So let's have it. Okay. Please feel free to, if you have any thoughts, or I want now I may not be able to get to the comments very quickly, just because of who I am. Um, but I do want to have the conversation. I want anybody who comes to this channel to feel comfortable enough to share their experience, and or just, I don't know, I want this to be a space where you feel comfortable, and having hard conversations or not talked about conversations, I think is going to be of benefit to a lot of women. And who knows, maybe 10 years, 5 years down the road, we can look back on this and be like, we started the conversation, and now the science it has gotten to a helpful level. Um, but anyway, so let's just dive into this. I'm rambling again. Again, my notes don't seem to help me very much, but at least I can come back and get to it. So I want to talk about the specific intersection between menopause and neurodivergence. And again, I am coming from a small amount of research and an awful lot of experience that I've had in the last few years. So I'm going to speak through my own lens. And, and if you have a different experience, you can share that as well. Um, but some of the things that I have noticed, so I have a couple points here about the specific intersection. So, number one, you have sensory changes. Now, we all know if you're neurodivergent, you are going to have sensory triggers. I personally did not understand how much I was getting triggered with very little things until my body said, stop and pay attention. And you need to just rest right now and try to figure this out. So, sensory changes really started affecting me. The one thing I noticed, now this happened. Now, if you can relate, please let me know. But this happened actually probably more, maybe about like a decade ago. This started happening to me. I all of a sudden had like the bionic nose. Like I could smell things that nobody ever smelt. And I got to the point where I would make people nervous because all of a sudden I'd start going, my husband would go, what do you smell now? And we tried to figure this out because sometimes, and a weird thing is sometimes I would smell something, but it would smell like something else. Like my husband likes chicken bacon, and sometimes it smells like, to me, it smells like there's like a bonfire outside or whatever. So I started noticing that about a decade ago. And once I got closer to actual menopause, I started getting to the point where there are just smells that I can't handle. And I would get so sick to my stomach. I would like, I pulled myself and I would sit in the corner if I couldn't escape the room just to like be near an open window or something because I just couldn't handle it. So, with me, with the sensory changes, smell was the first thing. And then I started noticing that I mean, I always had a little bit of like sound triggers. And, it was just like certain frequencies, like whether it was a low, like a kind of a low rumble frequency, it would hurt my ears. And sometimes I would be able to hear like a fluorescent light that's about to go, or like that. I think you understand what I'm saying because it's annoying. But what happened is as I got closer to menopause, um, I couldn't like, it wasn't like they were like more sounds were painful to my ears, but I couldn't tolerate it anymore. Um, and I would have to, that's when I started using earplugs to sleep. That was the first thing I did. Oh gosh, 3 years ago. That was one of the first things I did when I was doing my research is I found out about loop earplugs. And that's what I've been using. So I now have two sets of loop earplugs. I would like to get more, but I have one for sleep and I have one for busy spaces. I've had to use it in stores. I've had to use it at family functions. I've had to I definitely use it with concerts I've gone to. But I started doing that years ago because when I was in my early 20s, I worked at a record store and I saw an awful lot of rock concerts. And so I have permanent tinnitus. And I realized that I needed to start protecting my ears. So I was wearing like actual earplugs for like that would block out everything. And I would try to find good ones so I could see the music. this is way before I even knew I was ADHD. I started wearing earplugs because my, sound does not exist for me because I've been to so many concerts where I was right up against the speaker. Stupid things you do when you're a kid and you're going to concerts. Um, but yeah, so I noticed that when I started using my earplugs um on the daily and when I slept, it kind of helped my anxiety. So it wasn't like they were painful. Like some people can say certain sounds are actually painful or they make them sick. I just lost my tolerance for it. Um, I haven't really had too many other sensory changes. Sometimes I'll taste something that I can't handle. But for the most part, I've always had that. Like I can't do avocados. I can't do mangoes because they just like the texture. I just can't handle that. But I've always been that way. That has nothing to do, well, I mean, I guess it does have to do with neurodivergence, but that has never changed. So my taste has never changed. My uh temperature sensitivity has gotten really bad. So I can't um and this is all kind of like this piled on when I first started like losing my executive function and when I hit burnout. All of this stuff just amplified. And I've always run hot. Like I'm a boiler all the time. And since I was a kid, I remember always being hot, and I sweat a lot. That I think is genetic because I have other people in my family who sweat a lot. And so we always have to make sure we have our electrolytes and our water. Oh, and I also found buoy. So for my temperature sensitivity, um, sweating, I noticed that I was much more exhausted. So I started putting in electrolytes in my water, and then I found buoy. So that's another product. One of these days, I'm going to do an entire video on all of the accommodations that I have found over the last 3 years, and maybe some of that can help you guys. Um, so yeah, so temperature, I like if it's 73, above 73, I can't even handle it. I need to have a fan on me all the time. I need to I turned my AC off just to record the video, but I had it on to cool down the room, and I'm about ready to start to crawl out of my skin because I'm getting warm. But yeah, so that kind of happened. So all of these sensory changes began to happen. So if you are just entering perimenopause or just entering menopause and you find that things that you were able to deal with or were only mildly annoying started becoming amplified, I would say something to pay attention to, because that has to do with the intersection of menopause and neurodivergence. Masking collapse. When I was talking in my last video, where when I hit burnout, I had all of this grief because I didn't know who I was anymore. I had realized that my entire life I had masked to be whatever person I needed to be to get people to like me, whether it was a friend relationship, whether it was a romantic relationship, whether it was uh at church or family or whatever. I realized, because I couldn't do it anymore, how much I masked. And I did take there's a masking test on the Embrace Autism website. Now, again, I will put that in the comments or in the description box so you guys can take a look at it, take the steps you need. And I realized how much masking I did. And once It didn't happen quite at perimenopause, but once I hit menopause, that was gone. That was absolutely gone. I don't know how to mask anymore. Now, obviously, I can do a little bit just to kind of, be on a phone call with like a utility company or something like that. But in general, like it's really hard for me to um be the person I always thought I was, because that's not me. And that was a mask my whole life. Um, and I lost the ability to do that. And so one of my meltdowns that I had over the last couple of weeks, um, it was silly. It was really silly. And this is what burnout does to your brain. If you're not in it. But if you are, you know what I'm talking about. I have a cat, my baby girl Abby, and she has started to get uncomfortable around thunderstorms. When we first got her, she was kind of okay, but now it freaks her out. And one morning, I think it was a week week or two ago, um, I guess we had a thunderstorm, and I had woken up. I was sleeping through it, and I woke up and I went to go find her, and I couldn't find her. And all of a sudden, I was looking for like 20 minutes, and then like I started to lose it because I had texted my husband. I'm like, when you're gonna be home, I can't find Abby. I can't do this. I can't do that. And my brain, because I have a lot of trauma around the loss of animals, my brain just started to spiral and ruminate. And I was for sure my cat was sick. She was dying. And I lost it. I lost it. I went hysterical. And my husband had to talk me off the cliff. And then the day was shot. I stayed in bed the whole day. It came out of nowhere. And what I told my husband is when things like that happened in my past, my rational brain would come in and talk me down. But now I have no executive function. I have no regulation. Um, but on top of that, one of my masks, and it's kind of sad to say, but one of the masks that I used to use was the mask of it's not a big deal. And I would push all my emotions away and then put on this like calm demeanor. And I made the realization that morning when I couldn't find my cat and I was melting down and I was spiraling and ruminating, and the worst, you know, thoughts were coming into my head. When I was talking to my husband, I made the realization that I can't put that mask on anymore. Like it's gone. That ability is gone. I can't um sad well, I guess it's a good thing. I don't know, because I was pushing myself away to be something in that moment that um would hide my true feelings. So I guess it's a good thing that I can't push myself away anymore. But at the same time, I'm so unregulated that I don't know what to do, so I just spiral. And that is part of the intersection between menopause and neurodivergent, because the hormones are all screwy in my head, in my body, that all of the chemicals in my brain are just like misfiring. And yeah, it's been tough. Because of that, the executive function, I've mentioned this several times, things that I've been doing my whole life, naturally, calmly, normally, all that, I can't do anymore. It's like, what the heck? What the heck is going on in my brain? The other day, it was Wednesday. No, was it Wednesday? No, it was Thursday. And I I had gotten up and I had plans. I had put in my head that I was going to do this, I was going to do this, I was going to do this. And I get up and I I start my routine. I have my breakfast. I, I'm sitting on my dining room table and I'm like ready, finished, did my dishes. Everything's going good so far. And then I'm sitting there and I know that I have things to do, but I couldn't figure out what they were. I couldn't, I did, I, I couldn't. I mean, I was paralyzed. I was what I would assume I was in, like, I guess it was ADHD paralysis or, that autistic inertia issue. I could not figure it out. I could not see the first step to do anything. I couldn't remember what I wanted to do. I think I wanted to do this, but it I was in such a state 4 hours. It took me all day, all day to get myself in the shower. Nothing, I wasn't in a bad mood. I wasn't having I wasn't spiraling, I wasn't ruminating, I wasn't having a meltdown, I wasn't having a shutdown, I just couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed. Um and I had to wait. My husband got home. That always helps. I guess some sort of body doubling, I don't know. But once he got home, it was almost like there was somebody there to kind of jumpstart my brain. And then it still took me about an hour and a half after he got home to get into the shower, but I was able to take like baby steps. Like I got my clothes, I put them in the bathroom, brushed my hair, sat down for a little bit, made sure I had everything, my toiletries. And then I was finally able to get in the shower. But one of the accommodations that I have used to kind of get me out of my funk um, was I listened to my favorite band, which is Shinedown. And there's something about their lyrics and their music that kind of lift me up a little bit. So I finally got myself to the point where, okay, I can get into the bathroom. I got my fan because I need a fan for the shower. I got my fan. I put everything in there. And then I'm like, you know what? I need some Shinedown. And so I brought in my iPad. I started playing Shinedown and I got my shower. And then I continued to listen to Shinedown for the rest of the evening. I danced around the kitchen. I made dinner. I was able to work for an hour on the computer. It was like all of a sudden things started to move. And again, that was because of the intersection between menopause and neurodivergence. And I'm starting to see these patterns. Now, one of the things, just to put in a little bit of science, this is what I've learned. Um, Estrogen and dopamine are best friends. So when you have lower estrogen, you have lower dopamine. And when you have lower dopamine, you don't have any drive, you don't have any motivation, you struggle with things because there's not that spark of excitement. You know, dopamine is should be our best friend as neurodivergent people. And for some reason, naturally, neurodivergent people have issues with dopamine. You add menopause into the mix, and then when the estrogen drops, so does the dopamine because they're best friends. And I'm starting to figure out that I think that's the biggest problem. It is this dopamine problem. The estrogen drops, so does the dopamine. And what the other thing that I've noticed, and I may talk about this again, some of the different things. Um, well, I guess maybe I'll just talk about it because most women my age, your age, those of us between 45 and 65 have chronic pain. A lot of times we attribute it to just life, wear and tear, um, a car accident. Like I've been in two major car accidents. So a lot of my chronic pain comes from that. I also used to be a power lifter. I was a cheerleader. I used to do splits all the time and squat 215 pounds. So that all takes its toll on your joints. So I just attributed my chronic pain to life. And then I learned about what happens when your estrogen drops. When your estrogen drops, your cortisol, that stress hormone that I mentioned in the last video, starts to rise because that stress hormone tends to, it's like our fighter, it's almost like our fight or flight, you know, processes just fail, and we're always on fight or flight. We're always in this high stress thing. So the cortisol raises, the estrogen drops, cortisol raises, and what happens is our body stops producing collagen effectively. So when you have a drop in collagen production in your body, your muscles, your tendons, and all of our connective tissues start to break down. Or if they get like micro damage, like if you're working out or you take a walk or something like that, your body does have these little, like, how your body gets stronger is you break down and then it builds up. And the collagen is part of that build up process. And so you're here, you're in menopause, estrogen drops, cortisol's up, your collagen levels drop, and you cannot recover. So what happens is all of your connective tissues just start to deteriorate. And that's why we women start to get worse and worse and worse with age. Those of us who are able to stay active and exercise may not have so much of the problem because exercise helps you create collagen. So you're basically counteracting. Now, I wish I was more of a gym rat because maybe I wouldn't have so much pain. But the I don't think that mainstream science has gotten to a point where we matter. I honestly, I think menopausal women just don't matter to science, because if anybody with half a brain or half a desire to help the females in this world would look at chronic pain and menopause, they would see the connection. And then you add the neurodivergence, and that connection is even stronger because the estrogen, the drop in estrogen, the drop in dopamine, the higher cortisol, all of this stuff plays a part. And I just, I think any research that's out there, It's always on a neurotypical baseline and a gender neutral baseline. They're not talking about the nuances of the issue of women in chronic pain, neurodivergence and menopause, why hormones cause anxiety. Instead of putting us on anxiety medication, maybe you should look into why we have pain in the first place and why we're in a stress response all the time. The science is out there. It is scientifically proven that lower estrogen raises cortisol levels and lessens the amount of collagen our body produces. It's out there, but nobody's grabbing onto it and talking about it because it it it's women. And then you add the neurodivergence to the top of that, and it ends up being too complicated for science. I'm just convinced that it just ends up being too complicated, so they just don't touch it. Somebody else will do it. And I think we need to start being our own spokespeople and our own healthcare advocates and menopausal advocates and neurodivergent advocates, because nobody's going to be doing this until we start talking about this intersection. Um, the the other thing that I've noticed, and this video is probably going to be long, and I apologize. And like I said, just put me on 1.5. Um, it's helpful. um, but when it comes to just, I mean, put aside the whole menopause, women's health, angle aside, the neurodivergent side, when you go to research it, a lot of times the neurodivergent influencers, those that are talking about it, they all tend to be on the younger side. They're not in menopause. They are either just finding out because, it's so in the forefront now. Like you'll have, people who were neurodivergent their whole life are finding out a little bit earlier. They're not like, myself finding out that I'm ADHD at 53. They're finding it out at 25. And so they're talking about it. And since that generation is so much online and on social media, they're talking about it. And so it's all on in this frame of like a younger perspective. Hence the reason why I haven't been able to find too many places that talk about neurodivergence and menopause. And I because of all of this, I think we women at this age are being lost. It's almost like the lost women or the lost generation, or I mean, put in whatever term you want. But I just think that an entire population demographic is being lost and falling through the cracks. And I guess because of everything that I just said, I'm not surprised that I couldn't find a lot of this information, but I think I'm surprised that nobody's even made it. Like that just blows my mind. Especially it's 2026 at the time of this recording. It's 2026. Why are we still thinking and talking about archaic information? Information that is obsolete, information that is just missing. I don't know. It just blows my mind. But let me just, as we close this video, I just want to touch on a couple things. Now, I mentioned a couple things before, but I want to mention a few things that have actually really helped. And again, I'm going to get into this in another video, but I, what I'm learning, because I don't necessarily have like major solutions for you, because if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. If you've met, I like to expand that. If you've met one ADHD person, you've met one ADHD person. Yes, we may have a couple traits that are similar, but we're all different. We're all on a spectrum, and we all live our lives through the conditioning that we came from. So our experiences is going to be very, very different. Um, so again, my experience, um, the things that I have learned, um, is that number one, there's not a quick fix. Don't expect it. I think HRT, I don't know much about HRT. I think HRT does help with a lot of this stuff because it's helping with the hormones and all of the chaos that comes from neurodivergent, the intersection between neurodivergence and menopause comes from the disruption in hormones. So HRT can help. Again, I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to recommend that. I personally don't think it's the solution for everyone because we all have different bodies and different experiences. I personally don't um, want to go on HRT because I know how my body reacts to um, uh, synthetic hormones. I was on birth control for the longest time, and there was only one birth control that ever worked for me. And it was the one that I kept going back to, and they don't make it anymore. So I guess now that I'm menopause, I don't have to worry about that. But every other one I tried caused problems. So personally, I don't want to go on HRT. I have found herbal supplements that have helped with hot flashes and some of the brain fog. And it has um, lot of herbs that I'm familiar with from growing up around um, herbal teas and all that stuff. Uh, and I mean, I'll tell you what it is, but you need to talk to your doctor about whether it's good for you, and that is the Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth, and it's an all herbal thing, and it's been a great help to me. So that has helped for the whole for balancing some of the hormones that I have. Um, some of the things, uh, one, I guess one of the things, and I'm going to talk about this in future videos too, is the first thing I did, which has been really helpful, is I took care of my sleep. I did what I created or found solutions to help me sleep better. Frequencies in my ears. Now, instead of using earplugs when I go to bed, I use headphones, and I listen to frequencies that help with my chronic pain. Or if I'm feeling overly anxious, I'll use a frequency that affects the vagus nerve, or cortisol lowering, or anxiety, or something like that. That's been a big helpful, switching that up. I'm a zero gravity sleeper. That was one of the biggest things that I have found. And I kind of stumbled on it because when my mom got sick and I had to take care of her, she only has she has a 2 bedroom home, but one of those is her office. So there wasn't a space for me to sleep. So I brought the chair that I used for like Reiki appointments, and it's a zero gravity chair, like a deck chair. And I brought that with me and I set that up and I started sleeping in that. And then I realized that I wasn't waking up in pain anymore. I wasn't having the hip pain that that I was dealing with a lot for several years before I even knew what was going on. I always attribute it to my car accident. No, it's actually attributed to menopause because I have what I believe is gluteal tendinopathy because my estrogen levels went down, my cortisol levels went up, my collagen levels started to produce less, and my tendons, because I'm hypermobile, started to deteriorate, and I had a lot of inflammation. So the zero gravity sleeping really helped. I will talk more about that because I'm doing research on that because I think zero gravity sleeping is probably one of the best types of sleeping um, for people dealing with chronic pain. But I need to do more research about that. I'm going, like I said, going off my experience. My pain from sleeping zero gravity has gone from like a level 9. And I know that's hard to figure out, but like it was really bad. A level 9 to like a level 3 normally. And that's huge. That's significant. I've been dealing with chronic pain for the last 30 years because I had a major car accident when I was 24. And I had to have back surgery, and it's always been an issue, but then my hips started getting involved, and it was a mess. But zero gravity sleeping, that has helped. Um, Now I'm still finding things. Um, I'm a headphone girl now. Um, that has helped because I have noisy neighbors, and that used to give me a lot of stress. So now I can block it out. Um, that's been huge too. So those are just a couple things that have helped. There are a hell of a lot more things that have helped, but the list is like this long. So I'm not going to throw it in here. I just wanted to just mention that there are things that I didn't think would help, ended up helping. And even though it's not all better, not everything helps. I'm still figuring it out. It has allowed me the space to not only heal a little bit, but to, when you don't have pain constantly in your body, your brain works better. So it's easier to, um, I guess, manage. And if you do have a good day where you could regulate better, having a good sleep system, having a good way of um, at least doing that small amount of self care is beneficial. Oh, and I use melatonin to go to sleep. I know there's some weird uh, controversies out there about that. I have not found it has caused any issue. But again, anything that you take, you should always talk to your doctor or talk to a medical or health professional and make sure that if you are taking medication, that there's no contraindications, that you don't put yourself into a position where you have another problem. So always be like wary of that because that's really important. So in closing, I know this has been a really long video, but I rambled, but I didn't go crazy. At least I don't think. At least I hope I didn't. But I just want this video to let you know that what you are feeling, if you are experiencing any of this stuff, it's valid. You're not going crazy. You are not um, doomed to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 70. You're you're not falling apart. There are just things that are happening with this intersection that you might have to analyze, pick apart, and find what works for you. And I promise you that there are things to help. You do not have to live in the chaos. You don't have to constantly live in pain. You don't have to constantly. Now, granted, I still have my days. I mean, I'm still in burnout. I still don't have my executive function. I still don't have it. And I expect that I'll be here for a while. Um, but the baby steps that I have taken so far, I have seen such a huge difference in such a short amount of time that I'm hopeful that as I continue on this journey of trying to figure me out and figure out what my body needs or what it's missing, that I'm going to be able to live a better life, be able to be productive, be able to enjoy things. And I'm not doomed to fall apart. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I everything that you're feeling is valid, and I just don't want anybody who watches this video to lose hope, because there is a pathway out of it. And I think the more we talk about it, the more it comes to the forefront of the collective consciousness, and maybe we will have more pathways towards better research, scientific research, psychological research, and we can be a part of it. I don't know, what do you think? I has My question to you this week is, has menopause changed your traits, your neurodivergent traits, in ways you didn't expect? Or did you expect it? Tell me what has been different in your life, and have you seen I don't know, even if there's something positive that has happened. I think with all of this stuff that has happened to me, I was in a dark place for a very long time. And the more I researched and the more I um found little breadcrumbs of hope, the the better I felt and the more hope I found. So I I think we're going to be in a different place in 5, 10 years. I really think medical research is going to surpass anything. And the more we talk about it, the more conversations we have about it, the more we talk about our own situations and our own experiences with others, we're going to move the needle forward. And I think that's really important. So we're not lost anymore. I mean, we are a demographic that matters. And we need to be the ones that stand up for ourselves and be our own advocates and really kind of push this, like, this is something. Menopause, neurodivergence, this is something that needs to be focused on. So yeah, so you know I prompt you to answer the question: has menopause changed your neurodivergent traits in ways you didn't expect? And tell me what is different. So again, this is an ongoing conversation. We're going to continue again more. I'm going to get into my own accommodations, what's helped me, what hasn't helped me, and we'll see where we go from here. So again, thank you for watching and listening to me. And if you stayed this long, you rock. You are awesome. And I apologize, it's so long. I don't want these to be terribly long, but I didn't also want to extend the first 3 videos another video. We needed to get it over and done with so we can move on. I was getting a little bit antsy. And I think that might have been one of the reasons why I was so paralyzed in coming in front of the camera because I don't know. It just didn't feel right. So I cut out the fourth video and we just moved on. And I feel better about it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm gonna try to be a little bit better. I again I can't promise, but I was kind of sitting in shame for the last month that I couldn't get in front of the camera, and I don't want to feel that again. So, wish me luck, and I hope to see you soon. So I will, yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.